Doing well. So hopefully it works this time. I'm not going to give a big rant about all the things. I just hope it works. I'm going to turn the chat on and then let's start going over this stuff. It's been a little while since I've talked about this aspect of AI and nanotechnology combined. And ultimately, it's it's very important to pay attention to it, obviously, right? So scientists have created a swarm of injectable brain reading nanosensors. I've covered this article back in 2021. And I was covering this technology long before that, even. But now, as this videos will clearly lay out, we are really in the thick of this technology. It would appear to many as though we're kind of just entering this stage. But you have to understand and keep in mind that whatever it is that they're showing you that they can do, if they're announcing their technological prowess, if they what's up, Cindy, Shannon, good to see you guys. If they are announcing it to the world through their mainstream media talking head puppets and the articles that they put out there. Hey, Melissa, good to see you. Then just know the black budget, the military, DARPA, IARPA, Colonel, Brian Johnson, all of these people that have not only really invested their entire careers looking into this stuff. Hi, Indigo, good to see you. But also have received unimaginable amount of capital in pursuit of these types of technologies by the usual suspects, by the likes of those same people that always seem to make an appearance whenever there's a massive psyop of some sort, right? Like COVID or 9/11. I mean, all of them. There's always somebody behind it rubbing their hands together, coming up with all these ideas of ways to make the world better, but all it really does is further strip us of our freedoms in the name of keeping us safe, and also build upon technologies that on their surface seem like they would be very beneficial and absolutely could be if they were controlled by people with good intentions. And in almost every case that I come by, that is absolutely the opposite of what we're seeing. I wanted to start out here on this article. It's an interesting article, but this is an article that I have covered before. And then show how much progress really and the talking points and how this is being promoted in the media as of late, within the last couple of months up till now. And it really lets you it gives you good insight for sure as to what they want you to know. Because again, they don't let you just stumble across these things unless you're a hardened researcher that knows a thing or two about navigating the ever increasingly censored internet. But for most people that do their 9 to 5s, spend time with their family, come home, check the news real quick, they absorb headlines depending on what their interests are, right? Like even if they were interested in AI and nanotechnology, many people don't dive deep into this stuff. And the media controls that space by what they put out. They know what they want people talking about and getting them used to certain ideas. So when they actually fall on their head, it's not a complete shock and they don't get the type of backlash that would normally follow such a sudden arisal of a new technology that has absolute unpredictable but most likely tyrannical implications. Scientists have created a swarm of injectable brain reading nanosensors. Now, obviously, this ties into the Charles Lieber and Robert Langer playlist that I was covering back in early 2020 and for the next year and a half. Because it's that technology, it's those patents that allow for this to happen. Now they call it a nano swarm, right? It is a swarm of injectable brain reading nanosensors. What does that really even mean? And we'll talk a little bit about that as a refresher or maybe for people that aren't familiar with that. Hopefully you can get a little bit of an understanding as to not what's coming, but what is already here. Already here. And then we will talk about what the likely scenarios in the near future will be. But ultimately, everything that I'm going to be covering, it's not science fiction. This is stuff that's happening all around us, and it's hard to really grasp any one of these very important subjects because there are so many of them. It's a blitzkrieg. I use that term often, but it very much is what it is. They're coming at us as many different possible ways as they can all at once, and thereby diluting all of it. Even though you could get actually good information by some of this stuff, there's just so many things to follow and try to make sense of and try to connect the dots, cross the T's, dot the I's, etc. That you can easily get caught in the winds of it all and lose sight of what you were originally trying to find out. Why this matters in brief: if you think the only way we can connect your mind, we can connect your mind to a computer is through a chip or a skull cap, think again. Love the exponential future? Join our exponential community, yada, yada, yada. Why this matters in brief? Love the exponential, blah, blah, blah. The mission to read the human mind using brain-machine interfaces and allow people to telepathically connect to computers and robots as well as each other is gathering pace. But so far, most of these efforts have either required a brain-machine interface chip to be surgically implanted into people's brains like Elon Musk's Neuralink technology, or a more traditional BMI cap, skull cap. Now, though, a team of scientists in the US have developed a new kind of nanoparticle biosensor that can be injected straight into your bloodstream, travel to your brain, and then monitor your neural activity and even potentially read your thoughts. It's not potentially, as I'll show you in this video, there's concrete proof that this is already happening. They brag about this. This is something they're proud of, but you got to kind of be in the inner circle to really see that type of information, usually, unless you're a hardened researcher. What's up, Pam? So glad you could join. The cell-sized nanosensor, which are aptly named NeuroSwarm 3, can also cross the blood-brain barrier to the brain, which in itself is a significant feat. And indeed it is. Now, why is that so important? I think we seen a lot of this for some reason back in like 2021, right? When certain people, I don't know, co-founders of major pharmaceutical companies had spent their entire life's work on coming up with certain types of ways that you can get these nanotechnologies to bypass the blood-brain barrier. And they ultimately concluded on things like lipid nanoparticles because it's very effective. And then once hit with a certain electromagnetic frequency, it essentially melts the fat layer off of it that allowed it to bypass and expose whatever nanotechnology was inside. Now, if that nanotechnology happened to be, let's say, something like Charles Lieber, who was, again, arrested for secretly, he had a contract with DARPA, but was secretly working with the Wuhan lab and the CCP under the Thousand Talents program. If his patents, and by the way, he happened to work with the co-founder of a major pharmaceutical company called Moderna, and these two worked hand in hand on a lot of projects, but usually something to do with like cyborg flesh technology or sensors and ways to bypass the blood-brain barrier. And it just so happens that, yes, I'm sure it's a coincidence that Charles Lieber was arrested right at the beginning of the scamdemic, and Robert Langer ended up becoming a multi-billionaire for his co-ownership of Moderna. Not related to any of this, of course, YouTube. But nonetheless, Charles Lieber had been working on these technologies and selling these patents to essentially the highest bidder. And then they started putting all of it together. And then AI ended up becoming exponentially more advanced and getting more so by the day. And it's created the perfect storm for things that, even as I sit here and say them, don't hold the type of gravity that they should, considering the implications of what this ultimately means. The cell-sized nanosensors, which are aptly named Neuroswarm-3, can cross the blood-brain barrier to the brain, which is a good feat, where they then convert neural activity into electrical signals that can be read and interpreted by machinery, advanced AI. So say the team of University of California, Santa Cruz, who will be presenting their research next week at Virtual Optical Society Conference. They also say that in time, Neuroswarm-3 could help people with disabilities regain their movement. So they're hacking into the nervous system. Also, keep in mind, these are nanotechnologies inside of the brain. They're openly admitting all those countless talking heads, mouthpieces for the military industrial complex's propaganda network would constantly tell us that these are just conspiracy theories, that none of this is happening. Look the other way, pay no attention to what is right before you. But time in and time out, we see these types of articles from very reputable sources. We see peer-reviewed papers. We see the patents. We see them discussing it amongst each other. But no, we're not supposed to look into it, even though they're telling us about it. But if you take that a step further and be like, well, I understand that you're saying this technology now exists, but could it possibly be misused? That's where they draw the line, and that's where it becomes a conspiracy theory. Even though, if you look back across the last few decades, all of the major technology breakthroughs are now being used against us. Hey, I'm Forever His. Good to see ya. Love ya. Yeah, that was in a video years ago. I probably should have beat that down a little bit more because it was important that Charles Lieber worked with. And what was significant about that is that's why I say Neuralink is essentially right now just a sideshow. It's almost making people believe that they need to put something the size of a penny inside of your skull for these technologies to ever be effective. But that's not the case. One second. That's not the case at all. Clearly, as they've been explaining in this article, right, that they're bragging about their ability to use nanotechnologies to bypass the blood-brain barrier, but somehow that same person that invented those technologies works for the company, but they can't seem to grasp it. But there's other people that are playing catch-up that are able to do it. No, It's BS. It's something to make people, the masses essentially, believe that we are a long way off of this type of technology actually being implemented upon the masses. But it's happening right now. It's happening right now. It's also a notably different approach to those mentioned above, and during tests, the team found that their nanosensor swarm is sensitive enough to pick up on the activity of individual brain cells. Where and how many times have we seen that before? They're very proud of this technology, guys. Especially when you're talking about individual neuron. Because if you can map out what the brain does at an individual neuron level, you have the mechanics, the workings of the entire brain of whomever it is that you're trying to monitor. Therefore, if you have a sophisticated enough artificial intelligence algorithm, which we do, it can be taught on all of that data and start learning what it is, when this neuron fire, what this little patch and what that means and all of it. It'll know. And it'll know more than what we think is even currently possible. Like, this seems like something that's kind of a little ways off, right? It's like, yeah, well, it's here. They're already, you'll see as I go on. And matter of fact, let's move on. So set that on the back burner for just a second, because I'm going to approach this at two very important different avenues, but they will have a crossroads. They'll meet in the middle. Artificial intelligence is learning to read your mind and display what it sees. A computer guesses what people are watching based on brain activity. I doubt it'll play, but we'll give it a try. Yeah, they don't never really work. Artificial intelligence has taken us one baby step closer to the mind-reading machines of science fiction. Researchers have developed deep learning algorithms roughly modeled on the human brain. Not roughly modeled on the human brain. When we're talking about individual neuron mapping, that is the entire brain. If you can do this, if you have enough, which isn't a problem at all, you can get way more than enough nanotechnology inside of your brain in just one shot of some magic elixir somewhere that would allow for this. In matter of fact, I've shown and proved that this was happening by the very people that were working on these types of things. So they have that capability, but they're like, well, roughly modeled on the human brain. No. To decipher, you guessed it, the human brain. First, they build a model of how the brain encodes information. As three women spent hours viewing hundreds of short videos, a functional MRI machine measured signals of activity in the visual cortex and elsewhere. Now, they were doing this in the beginning with MRI, but they've essentially mastered this technology to the point where now they're using something called fMRI. Now, this type of technology can be also found in things like that, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's Apple's new VR thing. And all like Meta and all the people, the big ones that are coming out with it, utilize much of the same technology, and not just that, but add on to it through other things, through electromagnetic frequencies, which 5G has a huge part in that when we're talking about microwaves, because that's perfect for the density of the human brain. And that in combination with other things as well gives them a perfect readout. All that they need is the ability, the algorithm, the AI, to give them the power to do it. Now, that in and of itself is extremely alarming that they have that ability to see what you're seeing, to hear what you're hearing, to read what you're reading, and understand what you're saying. But what's worse is all of these technologies, according to their patents, as we've gone over, are designed in such a way to be sending and receiving, reading and writing, thereby permitting them the ability to not only read what it is that you're reading, or all the other things I just said, but can fire those neurons. They can excite that nanotechnology at a distance, remotely. And by exciting them, that excites that individual neuron, and they're able to produce whatever thought, whatever vision, whatever, as long as they already have it mapped out, which they do. They say they do. This is none of what I'm bringing you or saying is anything, is no conjecture, it's not prediction, these aren't conspiracy theories. These are all facts based on the leading cutting edge scientists, trust the science after all, their patents, the peer reviewed papers, and articles such as we're going over now. None of this is me saying this. I'm just putting those pieces together because I think it's convenient as we go through them close back to back like that. It really kind of gives a bigger picture. And of course, I'll put my 2 cents in for whatever that's worth. The algorithm predicted activity correlated with actual activity in a dozen brain regions. It also helped the scientists visualize which features each area of the cortex was processing. Another network decoded neural signals based on a participant's brain activity. It could predict with 50% accuracy what she was watching by selecting one of 15 categories, including bird, airplane, blah, 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 blah. And the network had trained on data from a different woman's brain. It could still categorize the image about 25% accuracy. Let me break down what that means. And I don't buy for a minute these numbers. This is what we're being told. Imagine what they really are able to do. But even, let's just take their numbers. So essentially what they're saying is we can map out your brain. You put on a headset. You don't even need to, because if there happen to be a magic elixir inside of you, they're already, we just read it, right? If this nanotechnology can bypass the blood-brain barrier, it could be intravenously carried through the bloodstream, set up shop, do its thing to an individual neuron level, which is insane. But keep all that in mind. And if they can do this, so they did that. Let's say you did receive some type of super elixir and survived. Didn't fall over with some type of heart. No, it doesn't matter. But so now they know, they've been mapping out, and they have tons and tons of people. I don't know, let's say 68% to 70% of the entire world's population. We're looking at like 5.8 billion people that possibly are data sources for this mapping. So these numbers are obviously going to increase dramatically, if not be perfected. But using their numbers, meaning that out of that let's just call it an even 5 billion that are providing this data. Now, those people are directly providing that data, it's saying. Right? So that's running through an algorithm, and they know specifically how that person's brain fires. But that can be carried over to somebody that didn't have that done to them with 25% accuracy. So that's pretty damn good. Especially when we're reading Science Magazine's numbers, right? Because they're not going to tell us what's top secret and classified in the black budget at DARPA, surely. But they will let us know enough where even what they're presenting when viewed with the correct lens, is extremely insidious. What purpose do you need this for? What is it that you want to read people's minds for? Is this really beneficial? I know they bring up, well, it can help paraplegics. Great. But why do you need to read their brain? Oh, that technology does both? Then why are we creating algorithms that specifically just do the other? They're separate. It's not like, well, this app runs that too. No, they're very different programs, algorithms. And we know, of course, why it is that they're doing it. They want to make sure you're not guilty of hate thought, thinking misinformation, and all of the other things that go along with that, of course. The researchers report this month in cerebral cortex, the network could also partially reconstruct what a participant saw, turning brain activity into pixels. But and this, guys, this is decades old. I remember about 20 years ago seeing this done with a cat. And that's when they learned that cats see people as cats, oddly enough. But they were able to plug, it wasn't this nanotechnology, but it was very similar. They were mapping out the brain and how certain sections fire. It wasn't even close to where we're at now, but even something so broad and basic as that at the time was able to show in a rough 8, maybe 4 megapixel type of image, but enough of them put together and you get a pretty good idea of what they're seeing. Now, this has been improved upon over and over and over in human trials, and now we're there. We got it. We mastered it, and we're only, day by day, it's only getting better for them. Not for us. We don't have access to this, and what would we do with it if we did? Would we really want to invade people's minds, see what they're seeing, hear what they're hearing? I'm sure it'd be fun for a lot of people, but that's a line I wouldn't be able to cross. Maybe I would one time and then feel extremely guilty about it and be like, oh my God, I wish I never. The researchers hope their work will lead to the reconstruction of mental imagery, which uses some of the same brain circuits as visual processing. Translating from the mind's eye into bits could allow people to express vivid thoughts or dreams to computers or to other people without words, mouse clicks, or their permission, and could help those with strokes who have no other way to communicate. Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great. Could this possibly be abused by tyrannical, power-hungry governments that are already basically laying out the foundation and saying that, like, if we only had a way to track these people ahead of time, if we only knew the signs, the signals, the way to it, we could profile them. And in case you're unfamiliar, I have stuff up about that too. From The Guardian, AI makes non-invasive mind reading possible by turning thoughts into text. Now, that's kind of basic compared to what we were just reading, but this is non-invasive. This is from outside sources. This is from people wearing those VR headsets, but this also can be done, as I covered, in patents and other articles similar to the kind we were reading, but different in context. But using technology, using microwave technology, essentially electromagnetic frequencies that could be sent from any one of those 5G stations, the relay stations as they're called, are capable of doing that, sending off the frequency, and thereby they could receive all of that data from all of the people around, and at will could just zoom in on any one of those and use the same type of algorithms to do it. So each one is pretty significant, but in combination with each other, well, I mean, you could use your imagination. An AI-based decoder that can translate brain activity into a continuous stream of text has been developed in a breakthrough that allows a person's thoughts to be read non-invasively for the first time. But it's still pretty invasive because the people that are going to be reading them are people that you probably don't want reading them. But not that invasive is what they're talking about. They're talking about inside, in vivo, in the body. This doesn't have to be. It's from an outside source. The decoder could reconstruct speech with uncanny accuracy while people listened to a story or even silently imagined one, using only fMRI scan data. That's what I was talking about a little bit ago. Previous language decoding systems have required surgical implants, and the latest advance raise the prospect of new ways to restore speech in patients struggling to communicate due to stroke or motor neuron disease. Now, no longer. Dr. Alexander Huth, a neuroscientist who led the work at the University of Texas at Austin, said, "We were kind of shocked that it works as well as it does. I've been working on this for 15 years, so it was shocking and exciting when it finally did work. It works. It all works. To think that they're not using this is just insanity at this point." That on so many, and I don't know how many videos I've made similar to this, that show like, oh yeah, well this facility, that government agency, this defense department, oh well, now we can do this, and yeah, well, we did bypass that blood-brain barrier, and if there was only a liquid where we could get more of this nanotechnology inside of people's minds, then well, we would have that capability as well. Like over and over and over again, to the point where like, are none of these people doing what the technology that they just spent 15, 20 years, as we just seen the person say, finally they've achieved what it is that they set out to achieve at the beginning of their career, but they're just going to put it on the back burner. Let it collect dust. We just wanted to see if we could do it. We're not going to use it. How naive one would have to be to believe that. Now, I'm not going to play this. This is, maybe I'll check out this guy's channel. I don't know.
Intelligence is now able to read the human mind. Now, this may sound like hyperbole, but it is real. In the video I'm about to show you, they're going to discuss the results of an experiment. In this experiment, they got a group of people and they played a Pink Floyd song to them. Here is what they played. You might recognize this song.
Now, this is mediocre, but this gives an idea. This isn't even close to what they're actually able to do inside the labs. This is just one of the quickest things I could find to show you how this works.
All it all was just a break in the wall. All in all it was. And then they scanned the
appropriate song, I might add,
brainwaves of the people listening to the Pink Floyd song. They then got an artificial intelligence, a piece of AI, which was trained on decoding brainwaves. And they had this AI look at these brainwaves that came out of these subjects. And what the AI presented to the researchers was a mumbled version of a Pink Floyd song. Now, here's the actual recording of what the AI produced after it decoded these brainwaves. Now, it's a little bit murmury, it's a little bit fumbly, but remember, it's decoding brainwaves, and you can hear that the melody is actually there. Now, yes, it's not exactly a carbon copy.
But it is. But it is. That's a very weak representation, but even that, even if that was, which it isn't, it clearly isn't. But if it were, you can create algorithms that map all these different things together and know what those words are. I don't know how many of you and how deeply you use AI and see how rapidly it's exponentially increasing its power and its capabilities, but it is immensely so. You can create algorithms to fix algorithms, to clean things up, to do all. So that where you could barely hear the words, even if that were to be the case, it would be nothing for them to be like, okay, well, this is, then people are wired up for this. This is being done at a distance. They're reading people's minds just as we're sitting here in front of this phone. If if we had this concoction of technology inside of us for some reason, and say you just got, I don't know, one of the latest iPhones maybe, there's a very real chance that your mind is being mapped, because some things are coming out about iPhone, especially lately, that they're up to some kind of shenanigans. They're sending out frequencies, pulses, infrared light. They're doing strange things in pulses. And make it that what you will, but it also could be used for things just like this. Not to say they are, but the possibility for it. Like I said, it's not something that may happen. This technology may arise at some point. It exists. The capability to do exactly that, to have your phone literally reading your mind, exists right now. And we already know about the NSA and how they've been long after, and not just them, really any government agency out there is always trying to find out what it is that the people that they're ruling over are thinking about. And they don't want people that are questioning anything. They don't want people that are concerned about the truth. Not in a world full of lies. Not when the agenda that you're pushing is the most BS story of all time, and you expect people to buy it hook, line, and sinker. You don't want people. You don't want dissidents. You don't want anyone that will ever doubt anything you say. And now there's obviously, that's on a spectrum. It's not like it is or it isn't. It's like, how dangerous is this person? And I guess in that sense, it could be binary. It could be like, well, if it, you could picture almost like a fuel tank, just as an example, right? You got empty, you got full, and then you got the middle. Now, if you drew a line straight up the middle and use that instead of fuel, we're talking about extremism or a conspiracy theory, whatever term that they would like. And you could be like, well, this person, thinks a lot like this, and they're on that more reddish end. Maybe they're orange, maybe whatever, but they're dangerous. We've seen enough of the dust. We heard enough of these are the people that we need to do something about. Now, it's only going to take a few psyops, maybe even one major psyop, where they're going to justify the need to be able to use this and identify these types of people in advance. And if we continue going down this route, it won't be long. And how then? How do you possibly expect to break those chains? If we continue to allow this beast system to be created, once it is, there's little to no chance of dismantling it. Other than bringing other things into this video, which I'm not going to do at the moment. Let's jump ahead. This was from Wired, which I was kind of surprised to see it, but this is September 12th, 2023. AI-powered thought decoders won't just read your mind, they'll change it. Mainstream media coming right out and telling you. Now, if the history and the patterns of mainstream media is any indication, then they're already doing it, and they plan to do it much, much more. That's usually what these types of articles ultimately tell you. Oh, but they're not going to let me. They just threw this paywall up. I read this article like twice before I went live, but all of a sudden, And it's the same one. I didn't close out and reopen it. I'm not like on a limited supply. I just, not now, they say. Don't show these people what we're telling them. And I was going to talk a little bit about this, but I'm afraid if I do, I'll probably slip up, if you know what I mean. Graphene and the Human Brain Project. I'm sure you guys could connect the dots there. But I'll save that for a separate video. I went over to BitChute recently, and I realized that I have like 300, 340, 360, I don't know, subscribers over there. I thought that was it. That's funny. I haven't posted anything over there in a long time, but I can't on Rumble. Rumble's out of the question for me, even though it's a free speech, right? You can get on as long as you're not telling the truth. I would like to see other truth channels really make a name for themselves over there. It's the same thing. It's almost a carbon copy of YouTube, except what? Russell Brand and Tucker, like the same people that are promoted over here, except now, what's up, New Edge? Now it's like, oh, Russell Brand is bad. No, we already talked about that whole thing, how he would eventually be tapped. And they're symbols, right? Just like Tucker, Alex Jones, all of them. They're symbols to let you know when they go after that person, what are they going after them for and what are they doing to them? What are they limiting them from? Well, clearly he's been saying things, even though he's doing it by the book. He's following their rules and doing it, but now he went outside of it, like literally nothing to do with YouTube, but a part of that whole Me Too BS, right? He was accused of rape or something from years back, like 4 years ago. So some new shit just resurfaced. It's a game to them. It's just a joke, really. They're going to use that type of stuff to be like, well, see, now if we did it to him, well, who do you think you are? But imagine that level at a very personal. I don't even know the words escape me to really try to emphasize just how invasive some of this stuff will ultimately be. The same things that they're doing now to show you that these people are bad actors and this is the wrong thing and this is what you cannot do will soon be in a place where we can't escape from it. Well, there will be no hiding it. It will be 1984. It'll be so incredibly impossible to escape it when it gets to that point. And we're getting there quicker and quicker and quicker. That's why I always say it. I'll say it again. It's important to share these types of videos to get them out there. I know, like, oh, well, I have a following, and they're not going to always want to see me posting stuff about you. Then don't. Then don't. But you had a chance. And if you did nothing with it, that's on you. And everybody will have a series of questions. We'll leave it at that. When the time comes that they must answer for. Mind control systems for human interfaces. This is just one of the patents. One of the many. The present invention relates to a mind control system for controlling a human being using an EEG map and a genetic map, which the genetic map I thought was pretty interesting because, remember how important it was to get everybody nasal swabbed? That's DNA. Where was that sent? Well, shit, China's got a whole bunch of them, but they're not the only ones. Pfizer's got them. The people that really want to control the world are the ones that all these nasal swabs are being sent back to, and you can't get much of a better DNA swab than that. So if we're talking about, individually going after people by a DNA, by a genetic print, essentially, well, we've already gave them plenty of information and plenty of data to do it. I'm not going to go through the whole patent. Patents can get boring, but I'll you know what I'll do? I'm going to go back. I don't do this a lot, but when there's very important things to cover, I'll go in the description. I'll leave links for you guys after the fact. AI brain scans and cameras, the spread of police surveillance tech. AI brain scans? Police surveillance tech? Wait, what? In the Middle East, artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies have become part of everyday policing. You get used to it. It's elsewhere. It's going on. It's just not here yet, but it will be. Don't sweat. It's all good. They're doing it in the Middle East. A brainwave reader that can detect lies, miniaturized cameras that sit inside vape pens and disposable coffee cups, massive video cameras that zoom in more than a kilometer to capture faces and license plates. At a police conference in Dubai being one of the major capital cities in the New World Order's future world, in March, new technologies for the security forces of the future were up for sale. Far from the eyes of the general public, the event provided a rare look at what tools are now available to law enforcement, and that's just law enforcement, around the world. Better and harder to detect surveillance, facial recognition software that automatically tracks individuals across cities and computers and break into their phones. Advances in artificial intelligence, drones, facial recognition have created an increasingly global police surveillance business. Israeli hacking software, American investigation tools, and Chinese computer vision algorithms can all be bought and mixed together to make a snooping cocktail of startling effectiveness. Combine all of that nonsense with the shit that we just went through, and then you're talking about a real cocktail. Fueled by surge of spending, yada, 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 yada. I don't even want to go through this. These types of articles piss me off, to be honest with you. This is from MIT. Tech that aims to read your mind and probe your memories is already here. Already here. March 17th, 2023. They're not saying... I was talking about this stuff years and years ago, and I was like, guys, this is coming. Like, if we don't do so, like, it's gonna... We're not, like, on our way to it anymore. It's here. When you really give it thought, when you just step outside of yourself and look at what's happening all around us in every different facet of life, and you know what it is. We've heard Biden with his fist pumped in the air going, oh, I'm white supremacists and conspiracy. Like, we know who the enemy is. They've made that perfectly clear. The DHS constantly puts out bulletins about it. FBI is doing raids on people, arresting people that have committed really no crime, just things that are protected constitutionally, which is a piece of paper that was designed to protect your inalienable rights, rights that you were born with. They weren't given to you by Big Brother. The government didn't say, hey, we're going to allow you to have free speech. We're going to allow you to have free press. No, these are things that we all know instinctively that we have the right to do. The Constitution was designed to protect that from a government that, like history has shown us, always oversteps their boundaries and always tries to find ways to get into people's lives, surveil them, lock them up for anything that goes against their narrative, their agenda, what it is that they want, right? If you question them, if you have facts and they're telling lies, they especially hate that. And then you're a dissident. Then you're a conspiracy theorist. So we know the enemy. They would keep telling us who the enemy is. So why would we think for 1 second that when they actually start implementing them, keep in mind, I said, this is only a psyop or maybe two major psyops away before they start making the case that they need to be able to find these people before those people do whatever it is that they say they're going to do, which will be something that they set up from the beginning anyway, right? That's how it always works. Problem, reaction, solution, Hegel, the Hegelian dialectic. So, memories, though. Probe your memories is already here. Earlier this week, I had a fascinating call with Nita Farahany, a futurist and legal ethicist at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. Farahani, I don't know how to spell her name. We'll call her F. Has spent much of her career exploring the impacts of new technologies, in particular those that attempt to understand or modify our brains. In recent years, we've seen neurotechnologies move from research labs to real world use. Again, why would we think otherwise? Why would we think for 1 second that all of the stuff that we just went through in this video would not be real world use? It has been their wet dream for as long as I can remember researching this stuff. This is the ultimate for them. I got to get wrapping it up here pretty soon, guys. But this subject I could talk about endlessly.
Here. Welcome back to the Black Mirror series recap. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm going to explain a drama, science fiction series from Black Mirror Seasons 1, called The Entire History of You. This episode has an unpredictable plot twist, and I think this is one of the saddest episodes from the series. Watch it till the end to find out. In the future, most people will have a device called Grain implemented behind their ear which can record everything they see, do, and hear. The device has the main function called redo, which allows memories to be replayed either in front of the user's eyes or on a screen.
You know what's funny about that is like they're kind of making it sound like a neural-like type thing, but we just already seen actual factual patents. And, well, I didn't go through the patent, but I have plenty of times in the past. You don't need it. All you need is that nanotechnology that they were just bragging about that can bypass. So they can do all this stuff. They just said that they could do all this stuff with the nanotechnology. So why would they need something behind their ears? This is still just the same reason I believe Neuralink exists right now, is to keep people thinking like, yeah, but they can't do that unless I get a penny-sized hole in my skull. But no. If you happen to receive a certain concoction of nanotechnologies ever in your lifetime, then there's a very real possibility that it's happening to you right now. Red herring, well said.
The movie begins with a young lawyer, Liam Foxwell, who is attending a work appraisal at a law firm. After several conversations, he is required by the employers to conduct an exhaustive redo next week. Liam suggests that he is willing to do that now, but they insist to do that next week, which makes Liam think that the appraisal didn't go well and leaves the office with an unpleasant feeling. After leaving the office, Liam replays his memory of it and dwells on a seemingly insincere phrase used by his employers. Thanks to the Grain technology, all passengers at the airport are now required to perform a redo to ensure they have not been doing something suspicious in the previous day or week. Liam then arrives at a dinner party arranged by his wife's friend and welcomed by Lucy. Upon entering, he sees his wife, Fionn, is talking to a man he does not remember, whom later she introduces as Jonas. Jeff.
This is all predictive programming. That's why Black Mirror exists. I love the show. I love creative. I love the artistic angles. I love the contrasting. It's a brilliant show. It's well done. But they're letting you know what's coming. And it's not off in the distant future. It's happening now. Like, please understand that we are literally only a psyop or two. Major psyops, not these punk-ass little shooting psyops the FBI creates to try to keep creating manifestos so they can build up. They're doing that so when the big one happens, they can be like, well, we have like 45 different manifestos and we know how these people think. We'll plug that into an algorithm and, well, we'll see what ends up happening.
Who turns out to be working on recruitment, asks Liam about his appraisal and suggests redo it on a big screen so that they can give their opinions on it, but Jones suddenly comes and saves Liam from the embarrassment. At dinner, Jonas shares stories about his personal life. One of them is about how often he pleases himself with a redos from his earlier relationship. Throughout the meal, Liam becomes suspicious of how fondly Fi seems to be looking at Jonas. He also becomes very jealous of him as Fi always laughs at Jonas' cheap jokes. One of them, Hallam, claims that her grain was gouged about a year ago for some perverts and says she was lucky because it didn't break her vision. When Liam and Fi return home, the couple is looking at their baby's redo when Liam suddenly brings up a topic about Jonas again. He then discovers that Fi had had a relationship with Jonas many years ago, which she had mentioned to Liam before, but downplayed. Liam finds it hilarious because he sees Jonas as a silly person. Still having doubts about it, Liam replays their conversation about Jonas and Fi says that their relationship just lasted for a week. After arguing with each other, Fi eventually admits that their relationship lasted for 6 months. Out of control, Liam insults her as a bee and Fi becomes very upset. Before sleep, Liam apologizes to his wife and they replay a recording of them having intercourse together. These lies make Liam more paranoid and he insists on replaying footage from the previous evening. He even asks their babysitter.
Now, that level of technology where we have access to it will probably never come. They may give us a little bit, just like they did with like GPT-4, right? Or Chat GPT. They'll let us play around to keep us busy and being like, oh, wow, this is, and it is amazing. It is very powerful. But that's what they gave us. What are they keeping for themselves?
Babysitter, Gina, opinion whether the cheap jokes from Jonas were funny or not, whilst drinking excessively. Filled with jealousy, Liam also questions Fi about her expression while looking at Jonas, accusing her of still having feelings.
All right. I don't want to rip off the dude's whole video. We get the idea. Oh, by the way, props. So in my last video, I was talking about I want to find some of my early videos. Active Research is the man. He has been not just I wish he was in here so I could give him the props he deserves. But he has like terabytes of videos from true. This is exactly like that may not be your cup of tea, but he found something that he could do and did it. And now he has an immense amount of information from years and years all archived. And I was able, thanks to Melissa Jackson who sent me the link, able to find one of those Nipah virus videos that I was talking about years ago. Right? And here it is again, of course. Not again, it's like for the first time, but it was always Nipah to me. Like I always thought, like even when COVID came, I used to say like, this isn't the real one, guys. This is like the hype so they can bring in the totalitarianism, they can bring in the tyranny. This isn't it. If they want to, and they want to eliminate people, there's a very good way to do it. And there are already genetic sequences, call them viruses, if you will, that can do it. And it's alarming to see. Now, it may just go away in India, right? It's the way the mainstream media is talking about it. Oh, we'll have to keep a close eye on it. But yeah, I was kind of working on that too. Would it be the same link you gave me, right, Melissa? That's I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that took me right to the page. So instead of having to do it myself, I think I'll just repost yours if you don't mind. No need to post the email, obviously, but I appreciate that's what keeps us strong, guys. That's what keeps us alive. Is this sharing of information. And thank God for COVID. Seriously. You know how many people it woke up, but if we sit on our asses and we let an opportunity like this pass us by, why do you think they're coming down so incredibly hard on misinformation, on medical misinformation, on conspiracy theorists, on domestic terrorism, creating domestic terrorism units, and doing all of this shit? They know that there's something called critical mass. When you reach a certain point, now it may seem, that's why I don't give up. Because I know what's in the cards for me. I'm fortunate and unfortunate in that way. But a lot of people don't. And they don't understand, I think. I don't know how to make sense of it, honestly. That the writing's on the wall. Now you can choose to ignore it. You can choose to bury your head in the sand. But we see what's going on. Now, this is first and foremost, at the moment, an information war. We were given an opportunity because when they started locking people down, when they started ripping children out of their parents' arms because they weren't wearing masks, when they started tearing up grandmothers off park benches and slamming them to the ground and putting them in cuffs, like all sorts of crazy tyrannical shit that we've seen over the last few years woke a lot of people up. But they have their gatekeepers that serve that purpose. Your Russell Brands, your Alex Jones, your Tucker Carlsons that are there to catch them, right? That's why Tucker Carlson went from Fox News and now, he's on his own. He's getting like 10 times the viewership on Twitter or X. They know what they're doing. These aren't amateurs. They're not playing around and seeing what works. It's well established and refined to the point of absolute perfection. They've been doing it for years. And the only chance we have is when they do something like that on a massive scale where we can really use an opportunity like that to reach people. Now, of course, we're using their technologies, their platforms. So we got to be slick about it. But what we really have to do is share. I know it. I know. I beat that poor horse to death. But that's what it comes down to. And some of you do a great job and you get it out there. I continue to try. I spend a lot of time producing content, so I don't focus too much. I do, though. I still try to share and get other people's names out there. But if you're not, whatever, find your niche. Just like Active Research did with the archiving. Find something that you can do to benefit this community. If you sit passively by and just watch and see and understand, but not offer anything, you're not going to be the only one. There's going to be a lot like you. You may be the one that made the difference. You don't know. It's chaos theory, the butterfly effect. We cannot possibly imagine what will ultimately be something that may sway many, many people. But you guys all over here, I don't care how it sounds anymore. It's not worth me trying to just keep this reps. Well, I don't want to talk because I know it's going to sound crazy, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. You're important. You need to do stuff. Do more than what you are for many of you. Some of you are doing everything you can. I appreciate it. But you, God bless. I hope you all have a great night. I really do. It's tough to find a lot of silver lining right now. I mean, we're surrounded by doom and gloom. It's important to pay attention to the little things. Your family, don't take, it's like, drink a glass of water. You take water. Who cares about, every little thing. Try to start learning to appreciate those things. Because the big things, the things that used to create the excitement and be able to get you through those times, that's going to be diminishing more and more. And we're going to have to come to a place where we understand that it's always been and always will be what is really important in our lives. And it's not the glamour, it's not the money, it's truth, love, life, and happiness. And God, of course. All right, guys. Got to get going. Thank you for being here. Share the video. Or not. Much love. Peace.